Now to a CBS News New York investigation. He said he was just trying to do his job at a homeless shelter when he was repeatedly punched by police officers. Well, tonight, the city's police oversight agency is investigating. Our investigative reporter, Tim McNicholas, sat down exclusively with that worker and his lawyer and has video of this beating back from February. And we want to warn you, some may find the footage disturbing.
Surveillance video shows officers rush through a door, quickly push the shelter worker toward a wall, and two of them appear to repeatedly punch him as he drops to the ground. The officers then arrested the man, Jason Salters, a shift supervisor for a nonprofit hired by the city's Department of Homeless Services, or DHS, to run the Renaissance Shelter in Crown Heights.
I was absolutely appalled.
Attorney Andrew Laufer is representing him in a lawsuit against the NYPD and the city.
They engaged in what is clearly excessive force outside any reasonable means.
Salters says the officers told him they wanted to search the facility for a domestic violence suspect who'd been staying at the shelter, but Salters says he couldn't let them in. According to a DHS report, while on speakerphone with Mr. Salters and the NYPD, a social services director for the city said the NYPD is not permitted to search the facility for the client if they are not in active pursuit, like a foot chase.
If they had a judicial search warrant signed, they could have just entered the property without any type of issue.
But other DHS documents state that in some situations, officers can enter shelters with a document called an investigative card, or I-card. The DHS report on the incident says the officers did present an I-card that day, but Salters says he called that social services director because he'd never even heard of that. Law enforcement experts say regardless of whether the officers should have been allowed in, the surveillance video raises serious questions.
The punches seemed unreasonable. Again, we need context, full context, but just judging from what we saw, my question is, was it reasonable?
Salters says he was taken to a hospital and eventually to NYPD central booking, where he says officers told him he'd be charged with obstruction and resisting arrest. But he says the day after the beating, he was released with no charges. The NYPD and the Department of Social and Homeless Services say they won't comment on the February 5th incident due to pending litigation. Maurice.
Tim, Salters took quite a beating there. I mean, how's he doing? Any injuries?
He says he does have injuries and he has some anxiety because of all this. And you're going to hear his story in his own words tonight at 11 in our exclusive interview with him. Maurice.
Okay, looking forward to that. Tim, thanks so much. And our investigative team was alerted to this story through a tip. If you have something you'd like them to look into, you can reach out to the number right there on your screen.